Okay, everybody, it is time to get going. We have a fantastic session in front of us. I am Jennifer Openshaw, and it is great to see so many of you joining us here today. Give us just one moment, and we will get started. Okay. Everybody, welcome to A Day in the Life of with Gunjan Kedia. We have a fantastic session in front of us, really a special guest, and we're so thankful to US Bank, who's a partner of Girls with Impact. And today we're going to talk a little bit about money, markets, and miraculous interviewing techniques, because this is a woman, when you just stop and think about Gunjan's story, okay, how does somebody go from immigrating from India into the United States to land one of the top slots in the financial industry? This is a woman who oversees $200 billion of other people's money to make sure that it's invested safely and securely and for growth. We have a fantastic 45 minutes. I want you all to start to think about some of the questions that you want to ask her. I'm first going to begin in a conversation with a little bit of a Q&A. We are going to take a little poll from you. We're going to ask you questions about interviewing techniques. But we're going to hear some incredible insights from Gunjan. And first, I just want to remind you that Girls with Impact is bringing this as part of our series. We are the nation's only live online entrepreneurship for girls. We were in Saturday's New York Times, so if you missed it, read that story. It was fantastic. We offer our traditional entrepreneurship academy, and we offer our future ready workshops. And this workshop today is really part of that series, and it's really designed to help our young women learn the skills to be successful, right, on the job, in college, and beyond, and really to learn how to follow in the footsteps of people like Gunjan. So with that, I want to introduce Gunjan Kedia. Thank you so much for being with us, Gunjan. What an awesome turnout.
It's my pleasure, Jennifer. Thank you for including me. What a great organization, and really thank you for the work all of you are doing.
Hey, Gunjan, I want to ask you, because all of us, a lot of these young women are just now maybe entering their first job, or they're starting to think about it. Just to get us going, what was your first job?
Well, I'll tell you, my first job was when I was in the 9th grade, and I was wanting to buy a new pair of jeans. So what I did over that summer was to sell air fresheners door to door in scorching Delhi heat. So I still have those pair of jeans, by the way. They were hard won.
That's very funny. So it's so interesting, Gunjan, because you hold like this huge job. Girls, this is a huge job, okay? Like imagine overseeing $200 billion of money, right? Can you just give us a feel of what does it mean to run wealth at US Bank? What's that job like?
Yeah, well, let me just thank you for asking. This is something we think about all day long, and here's my chance to do a little advertisement for young women professionals into this field. Most of us have some kind of relationship with money, and at your age, you're probably thinking of money as something that you used to just pay for a pizza, pay for a new pair of jeans. But as you progress in life, you start saving and then investing for your future, for your retirement, for your kids' marriages, for other people's education. And that's what we do. We help you invest your money in the capital markets globally so that you can earn a return on it and your money can work for you. You have to do it according to the risk profile and the preferences and the goals that each individual has. So really, it's not so much just the knowledge of capital markets and what might be a good way to invest. It's really What do you want to achieve with your money? So that's what we do. We take our responsibility very seriously, and that's wealth management.
Hey, Gunjan, can you tell us, like, how did you get to where you are? Because it's very tough to get in a position like one that you're in. What would you say was really most important? I mean, there's so much we could talk about, right?
Very good. Well, if you'll give me a chance, let me just take a minute or two to tell the audience what my story really has been, because it'll put my career in perspective a little bit.
Yes.
So when I was sort of the age that most of your young women are in my senior school, I was in Delhi, and I was studying at an all-girls, very conservative Catholic convent school, not because I was Catholic, but it was a cheap private school. And our course curriculum outside of the basics were morality, needlework, household budgeting, drawing, because that in the late 80s, that's what young girls were being trained to do. When I graduated from school, I went into engineering, and I think I almost went from being in an all-girls environment to an all-boys environment, because in the late 80s in Delhi, not a lot of girls did engineering. And I chose that field because it was sort of my civic rebellion of sorts and what was expected of young women. But one of the most important things about being one of only 8 women in an engineering college is it teaches you to be very comfortable being the only one to be something. And that has been a very important mindset for me. After I finished my engineering, I came to the US for the first time. I had never taken a plane before I actually came here. I'd never left India. I lived a very sheltered life. My parents didn't have the type of wealth that would allow us to sort of vacation outside or fly. So it was a lot of firsts for me coming to Carnegie Mellon. And there, it was not just going to a different gender environment. It was a different race, it was a different color, it was a different religion, it was a different food type, different music type. And I give you all of this context because I've learned over time is everybody feels different in whatever environment they are. And some of that is a uniqueness. And instead of apologizing for it, I just decided to not just accept it, but I enjoyed it. I didn't lack confidence because I was different. I had a lot of American friends and I introduced them to Bollywood music. I introduced them to Indian samosas. And what I found was instead of making me odd, it just made me interesting in a different kind of way. And so that's how my career started. I was quite different, but never underconfident in who I was. We'll talk about interviewing skills. I was in Carnegie Mellon, it was in Pittsburgh. My first interview, Jennifer, and I'm not making the story up, I didn't know anything about sports teams because I didn't grow up in the US. And my first interview, my first question was, so what do you think of the Penguins? And as many of you might know, Penguins is a very, very famous team in Pittsburgh. And I just thought, why is he talking about these birds to me? And so I have to say, I am still here. I still got a job because all of you think interviews are these horrible things, but a little bit of sense of humor and a little bit of naturalness carries you past these blunders. So just to round up my story, after many awkward interviews, my first job was in management consulting. I did that for about 10 years. I was a partner at McKinsey, which is a very prestigious management consulting firm. And when I had my first child, I wanted a less travel-intensive career, and that's what took me to banking. I'd been doing financial institutions work for a long time, and subsequently had my second son and progressively bigger jobs within banking. Today I'm very privileged to be part of US Bank. It's a wonderful organization, wonderful management team. And I've done more and more with not-for-profits. I sit on the boards of about 5 not-for-profits, and they're all focused on education and personal development, resiliency, very focused on women and minorities. So that's a little bit of my story.
Gunjan, if you were to just like drill down, and girls, I want you to zero in on this. Do you think that engineering STEM background was really important to your success. It sounds like that was one of the important keys, and it seems like it's still really important today. And I ask because when these young women are working on their Girls with Impact ventures, we kind of steer them to STEM areas where we can. Do you think that that was one of the keys?
Well, I'll tell you something, Jennifer. At that point, STEM had not been a word. Like that was not the prototype. Although I'll tell you, the training you get in engineering is very, very good. It's very structured thinking. It's numbers. It's math, and especially for young women, it's different. And so I am very much with you in encouraging women to explore careers that may not be what their role models are doing. For me, what it did was to get me used to being in environments that were unfamiliar and education types that were not considered expected. And more than anything else, there's the hard skills that people get in any education. I'm a believer in almost any education can get you to whatever career you want to try and have. But boy, the strength and stamina you need to try and take on something that feels just a little bit harder than normal is wonderful. It's a great signaling value to people around you, and it builds your own confidence when you conquer something that you thought was a mountain just a little too high for you.
That's a really great point, that stamina, because I mean, isn't it fair to say, Gunjan, in your various jobs, and girls, this is really important when you're young and in your first job, staying with it, going beyond the basic asks, right? Having the stamina to get something done on time when maybe there's lots of pressures going on.
I can't emphasize that point enough, especially for this generation, because, you know, whether rightly or wrongly, there is a reputation as you get younger and younger, and maybe I'm getting older and older. So I accept that there are two sides of the story, that the first year is really fun, right? You're doing something new, you're learning something new. The second year gets a little bit more tedious because it's more repetitive, but that's when you are becoming so much better at your jobs. And by third year, you make your job better than what you found it. So staying with something long enough for you to actually be good and then create goodness in your role is a characteristic we all look for in young professionals joining our organizations.
I want to go back to interviewing because, Gunjan,
Yeah.
I know that I've had this conversation both with my husband and my mom girls. Like, do I have to know sports really well? Do I need to be able to have a conversation? One time, a gentleman invited me out on the golf course, and I kind of really didn't know how to play golf, and I got a quick mini lesson, and I went out and I sort of did okay. But the penguin story is just such a good one. What do you think, like, let's just drill down on interviewing techniques, because you've said that you're the walking case study. You've failed at a lot of them. You now hire a lot of people. How do you do a good interview? What are the, like, let's just drill down. What are maybe the one or two or three really important things for these young women and even parents to think about?
I do, and I must have interviewed thousands of people, and it's amazing how quickly you form an opinion. So let me just, in no particular order, I'm just thinking out loud here. I think the first few minutes matter more than you might think, because impressions are created very early. So what creates a good impression in your first 5 minutes? The best thing you can do is be easy in your skin. We see so many people who are trying to enact out a perfect person. And believe me, we have all been in your shoes. We have children who are in your shoes. And we do not expect a candidate coming in perfectly. So what we find very appealing is somebody who is just comfortable in their own skin. Now that's easier said than done. There is a mindset that helps here, but there are also tactics that help here. So in the 5 or 6 minutes before you start an interview, if you can stop rehearsing your answers, you can listen to your favorite music in your head, you can take deep breaths and smile a little bit, you'll be amazed at how much your stress levels go down, and that comes across to the interviewer. I always say being prepared is a very important thing. And be prepared for the questions that are standard interview questions. There's so many times I'll ask somebody, so tell me about yourself. Tell me something about you. It's a very easy question and it makes people flustered. And I say, well, that should be the easiest question you answer. So how do you answer basic questions succinctly, with brevity, thinking about what are the points you want to bring? Don't ramble on. Know to stop yourself after answering the question a certain time. These are practice skills that always help. And the last point I'll make is one of the things that I've seen more lately, and please correct me if my observation is off, someone has told young people that they need to come to an interview with a passion to save the world or save the whales or save the planet or hungry children or whatever it is. And if you genuinely have that interest, by all means talk about it. But if someone has told you to read about that in the book, please drop the stereotypes. It just makes you ridiculous to say things like that in an interview. I'm perfectly okay to say you're trying to, ace your next robotics interview, or you're really trying to, because we are human and we want to see genuineness and realness and wanting to do something specific that you are willing to put your heart and soul into. So these are just things that I would say, that lose the stereotypes, be yourself, have some fun with it. And even if you make a few mistakes, know that that's not what makes or breaks an interview.
It's such good advice. And even the question about tell us about yourself, it's one that has even stumped me because it's such the obvious one, girls, that you almost don't think about it, but you have to, because it's almost always what you'll be asked. Yeah. And as Gunjan said, keeping it brief and interesting. I think people are interested too in what makes you particularly interesting or strong in a particular area.
And I'll add one more thing while we're having this conversation is I'm surprised at how many people come in to see me and they haven't even Googled me. That's just insulting to an interviewer, right? If you have gone and spending all this time preparing about yourself, but haven't even taken the time to say, who are they? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on Facebook? What is it that you can say? Are they a YouTube artist? Have they said something in public? And so that's sort of also in the realm of preparation is find out something about your interviewer if you're able to.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Very good point. Including the company as well, right? Definitely the person, but I think also the company, which is so easy to do. You just go in the news section, or certainly on social media. What about, there's so much good stuff to talk about. So girls, get your questions ready, please, particularly on the interviewing front, really a good one. Let's talk about money because you manage a lot of it. I know I was a motel maid at age 14 and wanted to build my own financial security. These girls, I think all of you, right, girls, want to get to the millionaire zone. Is that fair to say? Probably, right? So Gunjan, what is your one or two pieces of advice for these young women who obviously, they're not really earning money yet, but they might get something from their grandparents and they're going to start to earn money very soon?
Well, first of all, thank you. This is my unique soap opera box because I will tell you, don't assume that girls want to make money. That may be true of the women you see because they've self-selected a very important point to say, I'm going to invest in my professional capability, but that's not true of many women. There are some very sobering facts that I want to just share with this group. And my intention is not to scare, but to create a bias to action to do something differently. We've all celebrated that more than half the graduates coming out of undergrad are women. What we don't talk about is 2/3 of student debt, which is the biggest societal problem facing us today around young people's finances, are with women. Now, why is that, Jennifer? It's because women disproportionately tend to choose careers that end up not paying as well. And then they choose jobs even within those fields that don't pay as well. We still disproportionately see them prioritize what feels good in the moment when you're 17 years old, then thinking about what kind of jobs have earning power in the future, what kind of jobs tend to survive recessions. There are certain jobs that are sort of essential, and then certain jobs that flourish in good times. If women disproportionately choose jobs that flourish in good times, then in recessionary environment, they get income breakage. They lose their jobs, you lose your confidence, you lose your continuity. And then if you're constantly prioritizing fields, unlike STEM, for example, which is a high-paying field right now, your financial success in the fullness of time will be less than your male colleagues. So I would just say one of the best pieces of advice I can give you at this time, because the biggest decision in front of you are around student debt, which college you go to, which degree you try to do it, is by all means choose something that makes your heart flutter, but there must be some head included in how you make your decisions. Figure out which jobs have more financial payout, more security. There are more of them. They are in bigger cities where you can have a personal life. You can marry somebody and still stay with it. And these are all practical suggestions that will make long careers over time.
Really, really important point about that. Certainly the jobs thing. And I think in even some of the slowdown, as you were saying, we saw that women were more impacted with their jobs because they were like in administrative roles, or some of the roles were not in line and critical to the organization, right? So the closer you are to the heart of the organization. So for Gunjan, she is, managing wealth and money is central to a bank, right? So really good insights. What about, let's shift a little bit to the industry. So the financial industry, girls, right? One of the biggest industries, lots of changes there in the last few years, given technology. And I saw your comment, Gunjan, about, Amazon, right? Just because all of us can go onto Amazon and click and buy stuff, the banks now have to almost think that way, right? So there's a lot we can talk about. Let's first talk about what are the opportunities for young women in the banking industry, do you think?
Well, thank you. When I started in banking, right, Jennifer, in the 1990s, the image of the industry was quite tarnished. If you just look at movies, after It's a Wonderful Life, there has never been a movie that has portrayed a banker in a positive light. You see the Wolf of Wall Street, you see, greed is good. Like, the industry is portrayed so negatively that it used to turn off a lot of women. We have made a lot of progress. Today, I will tell you, the industry has about 50% of our employee base is women. So a big set of milestones have been met. What we have not done is created the same kind of equality in the most senior ranks of the companies and its boards, where we are still stuck at about 25 to 30%, and we are working very, very hard. But the reason I think this industry is uniquely suited to women and what tends to be their traditional strength is, first, it's an industry where you go home feeling really good about yourself on an average day. Money is very personal to people, and it's quite complex for people to understand. Did I blank out?
Yeah,
sorry.
You did. You're fine. You're fine.
I'm back.
So you're saying it's personal and it's complex.
It is personal, it's complex. So if you can simplify it in a trustworthy way to somebody and help them make one good decision at the right time, it makes a huge difference to their entire financial life. So you go home feeling, I did something good each time you talk to a client. So I think it's a very rewarding industry, at least it has been for me. And it's not just in your work. I will tell you something. My land, the guy who cuts my grass is an independent contractor. People really struggling through this financial crisis. I helped him think about how to get a small business paycheck protection loan from the government, which just made him not fire his employees for 2 months. I felt good that day. That felt like a good day to me because I could use my capability to make a big difference in somebody's life and in the life of their employees. So I would encourage you to look past the image of the industry and see what we do. It's also, practically speaking, banks tend to be in big cities where you can meet somebody, you can have a life, your spouse can have a work. If you think you're going to be in a dual career family, it's a white collar type of a job, it's air conditioned, you don't have to be in an oil rig. So in so many ways, I would say it is a wonderful destination for young women if they want to think about this as a career.
Gunjan, when you're hiring people, and you said that you've hired like thousands of people, can you
Thousands,
imagine that,
yeah.
girls? Like, is that crazy? Right? So she's got to know something, right? What do you look for? You talked about interviewing, tips, and those are really good ones. But now, can you drill down a little bit more about what kinds of things you're looking for, maybe why, if you need to?
Well, thank you for letting me talk about that, because I will tell you, we are at a very unique management and leadership privilege, I call it, because I have 4th-generation demographically in my workforce today. I have about 9,000 people who work for me. We have 70,000 people. So, it's a big enough employee base that you see baby boomers, you see Gen X, you see the millennials, and now we are seeing Gen Z in our workplace. And it is a privilege to see them all bring very unique skill sets to the table, and our role is to make sure that they function well together. So you see, what do we look for? I really look for people who can work with people who are different from them. And when I say different from them, I don't just mean skin color. I don't mean, and today, in today's environment, we are within 100 days of an election. I want to see somebody who might be um, passionately involved in helping the environment, that they can still understand the points of views of somebody 30 years older than them, who's a Republican, who believes in a political system that's different from them. And you can still find common ground because you have a learning orientation and a curious orientation about goodness in everybody. What we get with the younger people coming in, and I have to tell you, they are so digitally savvy, it makes me nervous every day. I ask my kids to help me because they do it effortlessly. We also find in the generations of people who are interviewing, much like the women we are talking to today will be doing, they are effortlessly diversity friendly. They have grown up in a flat world. They have friends that they are digitally connected with all over. So they bring this wonderful attitude to the workplace. They are also very comfortable innovating. Where when I worked in, I would never have the courage to send a vice chairman in my company an email to saying I have an idea. I actually do hear from my youngest employees, and they'll say, Gunjan, I have an idea for you. And they're usually pretty good ideas. So I listen to them carefully. So it's a wonderful workplace. It's a wonderful workforce. And I think they will improve our workplace in many, many good ways. I'll do 2 points of caution. One you mentioned already. They don't stick with anything. So I would say to you, you can really differentiate yourself if you can convey an ability to stick with something for any period of time and not just sort of want to do something new every 3 to 4 months. So that's actually a important differentiating factor here. And then the second thing I would say is, that's really the only thing I would point to. Otherwise, it's a very sort of refreshing class to have around us, and they bring a lot to our workforce, I have to tell you.
Super important points, Gunjan. And girls, we're going to open it up in just a minute or so with your questions. So please get them going, and you can chat them in to me if you want, Jennifer Openshaw, the host. Let's talk a little bit about leadership, because I think all you girls, you want to be leaders, right? You're here because you want to be leaders. What does it mean when you're looking at leadership qualities? What are the qualities that make a leader that you think matter today?
Well, one of the things that I would say, and I think Jennifer, you can add your own stories to this, is leadership is a mindset, not a title. The first thing I would like you to remember is leadership is a mindset, not a title. Every time one of you says to yourself, I need to invest in my own skill set and take initiative, and finds a program like Girls with Impact you've shown a level of leadership and initiative that you should not discount. So that's my first. Start being leaders today. Don't wait for age or titles or positions to come. So what we look for in leaders is, first I would say, curiosity, because no learners are so much more attractive than knowers, because things change. I'm learning every day. You need to learn every day. So a mindset that says, are you curious? Do you want to know how things work? Why things work so way? Can you hear somebody else's point of view and actually understand that, rather than always want to convince everybody of your own point of view? That's opposite from what the image of leadership is. A lot of people think of leadership as people who are talking at people. Here's my point of view. Here's what I want to do. Those are not the best leaders. The best leaders are who bring out the best in others. Let me hear what you have to say and help you make your dreams come true. So that's one thing I look for is curiosity. The second thing is empathy. Is can you sit in somebody else's shoes and live their lives and their fears, their hopes just for a minute? Because if you can't, you'll never really be able to lead in a way that people need you to lead. And then there are just mechanical aspects of leadership that are important. Great stamina. Do you let your entire world collapse the first time you stumble and fall? Or do you have the kind of mindset that says, oops, that was a bad day. Let me dust off and tomorrow will be a better day. So those are the type of sort of skill sets we look for. And if you have those skills, you'll keep your knowledge current. You'll have real friends, real networks, real followers, and there's a making of a leader right there.
Gunjan, excellent advice, girls. And I just want to emphasize a couple of those things is really listening to others, wanting to hear what they have to say. It's hard to do. Sometimes people like to hear themselves talk. And the other is sticking with it, because we're in a very fast digital world. And we know that you girls are, I see it moving very quickly, but if you're going to move up the ladder and you're going to run something or run your own company, you got to stick with it, right? You have to. So that's a really important point. We've got lots of questions, Gunjan. So let me turn to some of those, and I'm going to try to get to all of those. We've got about 12 minutes. Leanne, I think this is kind of the same question. So Gunjan, let's just briefly, how did you become so successful, would you say?
Well, I was very humble about improving myself, I have to tell you, and very confident about what I already brought, which are two very different, but it is the yin and yang that makes people work. If you underestimate your strengths and your mindset's always going about what I'm not good at, you come across as an underconfident. So if you can be a person that truly enjoys your strength and is truly humble with a good attitude about what you need to work on, I would say that's my formula. It's about as simple as that.
What about, I think you said you do like being a banker. Peyton Wheeler is asking this question. Do you like being a banker?
I do like being a banker. I love it.
What Neha, who was actually featured in the New York Times on Saturday on us, she asked, what made you transition over from being an engineer to banking and finance?
I'll tell you, I started with doing both. In my consulting, I used to do my early projects were in telecom communications industries, but I was looking at the financial aspects of it, and I just sort of started enjoying the financial industry so much more. It's very global. It's very interesting. It was very opaque to me. Like, I just didn't understand it. So I wanted to wade into it and say, what is it? And just, life takes you where it is. You never really plan. I don't think I planned to switch careers. I just started doing more and more work there, and I got to be good at it. And here I am.
Nadia, you've got a question. I'm going to let you ask your question to Gunjan.
Hi, Nadia.
What's your favorite part about your job?
What's my favorite part about my job? I will tell you, when you solve a customer's problem, or you give them an epiphany or an answer, is just a good moment in my life. I just find that I cherish those, and they keep me through some of the, more hard work, less interesting paths. You can't imagine how much we know that can translate to simple advice to people, and how appreciative they are that someone they can trust tells them how to do something with their money. that's my favorite part of my job.
We've got another question from Leanne. Take it away.
So like, what challenges did you have to like overcome?
It's a very good question. Well, early on, my challenges were really fitting in, I would say, would be the umbrella concept. I always felt like my accent wasn't right. I was short, because by American standards, I was short. There was a time when I was embarrassed about my family and my upbringing. I used to think, everybody talks about going skiing with their parents, and my parents are very modest Indian parents, and they didn't go skiing. So it was getting past that mindset of needing to fit, which I interpreted as being like everyone else. That was sort of the most challenging early on for me. And when I started mentally getting past all of that is when my career started to flourish more than anything else. I hope that answers your question.
Well, really interesting, right, girls, to hear that. I mean, we've all felt like we've had maybe something that didn't make us acceptable, really, right? Let's go to Ava Galley, who has a question.
Hi, Ava.
I'm not sure if it's on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
I was just wondering, I know you were talking about confidence, and sometimes if you're the person that kind of brings yourself down more, thinking that you're doing things wrong, or your boss or whoever's above you may not like that, how do you overcome that, thinking that it's fine, you can move on, or it's not
Well,
your hard
yeah, you just look at yourself and say, stop it. No, seriously, this is 1,000 years of social upbringing that women in particular carry, and you don't even know that because it's in your DNA. You don't see it, but you have to forgive yourself for it because it is 1,000 years of upbringing and social messages that tell you you're not enough. And we have to just acknowledge that. Over time, you'll read about it psychologically to understand why all these subliminal messages you get add up to destroying your confidence. But you have to get past it. You have to get past it. And there's so many ways you can read about of how to get past it. Surround yourself also with good voices around you who don't reinforce constantly what's not good about you. But remind you, there are things that are very good and there are things that you have to work on. And by the way, everyone from presidents to CEOs have that portfolio. Things they're good at, things they need to work on. There's not a single person who doesn't have both sides of that. And you just have to just remind yourself of that and surround yourself with the right influences.
Let's go to Sophia Kelly. Sophia has a question. Take it away.
Hi, what difficulties did you have while starting US Bank?
Well, starting at US Bank. So I started in US Bank in 2016. I inherited a very strong business, and a very good team. So I would not say in the scheme of things, it was a challenging onboarding. I mean, I compare that to another job, which I started 2 weeks after the financial crisis, where like the whole world was blowing up. So I would say that in general, this was a kinder environment to be part of. When you enter an organization that is very successful in a very senior position, one of the more nuanced responsibility is the right balance between bringing the change that you were hired to bring, but respecting what you inherit from the organization. And I won't say it was a challenge, but that's what I spent my time doing. How much change is right? How much change is needed? How much do I change myself to reach people where they are? And how much do I ask them to change to reach me where I am? So I would say that's an important learning for all of you. Your first new environment will be your college or your first job. And if you can just, without losing your confidence, just say, how much of the environment would I like to pick up? And how much of myself would I like to bring to change the environment? I think that's just a very good way to think about entering a new culture or a new environment.
It's a really good point, Gunjan. These questions are awesome, girls. So I'm going to keep going, and Kenna, you need to ping me if we need to go. So let's next go to Amaris. So Amaris, I'm coming to you. What's your question for Gunjan? Take it away.
How do you invest and save money?
How do you invest and save money? So let me give you a concept rather than a recommendation. And it's called risk and return. The more risk you take, you might get more return. So the first thing you have to ask yourself, the way you're wording your question is, if you want safety, there's a set of things you do. So I would say to you is, this is a very easy field to educate yourself on or get some advice from somebody. But knowing how much risk you want to take is the first step to thinking about how you want to invest your money. But don't ever make the mistake of saying, I should get huge return without taking any risk. No one really has figured that optimal spot out yet. It's a correlation. You're either safe and you give up some upside, or you take some downside and you get some upside for it.
And one of the just really important pillars, girls, of investing and saving is to start early. We actually have a workshop called, Make Me a Millionaire, but really it's about how do you start early, and the power of starting early and having your money build on top of your money, build on top of your money, something Gunjan knows so much about. So let's go to Rashida. Lots of great questions. Rashida, what's your question?
How can you show your leadership skills, and how can you show that you have the confidence? Sometimes, even though I know the stuff and I know what to say, I just lose the confidence or forget something.
Well, you wouldn't hardly be human if you didn't, Rashida. So thank you for that, by the way, because if you didn't feel a level of nervousness when speaking up in a large crowd, much like you did and very beautifully right now, by the way, you would be also what is called tone deaf. And that's not a good thing to be. Being aware of your surroundings is a very important aspect of leadership over time. And that means sometimes you feel nervous. I just go for it. It's about as simple as that, and allow yourself some mistakes. People think that the first time they make a mistake is the end of your journey. And the way I think about it is much like if some of you get an allowance from your parents and you're allowed to spend that money on things that you want. I want you to say, all of you to say yourself, I give myself an allowance to make 3 mistakes a month or a week, whatever you want to do. And if you make 3 mistakes a week, you cannot be that hard on yourself. It's only with the 4th that you take yourself. Much like you say to yourself, I can have a certain amount of dessert in a week, I can have a certain amount. You must give yourself an allowance to make some mistakes. And if you have that mindset, right, you won't kill yourself every time you spoke awkwardly in a meeting or you forgot your point. You'll say, okay, that was one of my 3. 2 more left to go.
Swati, I'm going to come to you in a minute, but I just want to, Claire, share your question. What was your first job? We touched on that at the very beginning. It was selling, right? If you want to comment on that real quickly. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, selling is no woman likes to sell, I have found, because we cannot hire women in our sales forces. But women are very good at it, I have to tell you. It's because they're genuine, they are non-threatening, many times we say, and sales is a very, very good training. There's something about asking someone for money, which is a very, very difficult thing to do. So I would just say to yourself, start early if you can, because you'll learn something very, very sustainable through a business career, even if you choose not to be in sales. I was in sales because that's just the only thing I could find that summer. Like there was no big thought associated with it.
But it is fundamental, girls, everything really, Gunjan, I think, we are telling people about our program. That's, you could argue that that's sales in some way. It's part of almost every business, really.
Every business.
Even nonprofits, right? Swati, let's go to you, and then Lucia will go to you afterwards. Swati? Swati, unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay, let's go to Lucia. Lucia, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Did you have a mentor? And if you did, why were they great?
I did have mentors, and I still think of them very fondly. They are very important parts of building your career. I'll tell you, my best mentors were not people who only made me feel good about myself, although they do that. Some days they also just tell you what you need to hear so you will be better than you were. So the things that made them really special was I never doubted that they cared for me deeply and their intentions were positive. But sometimes they pushed me into uncomfortable areas. So try to find somebody who does both for you.
Shreya, let's go to you.
Hi, Gunjan. My question is, how did you know that you wanted to be a banker?
You know, I actually didn't know I wanted to be a banker. And you know, some days I wake up and say, why am I here? What happened? What I did want was a certain set of characteristics, which I'm sure there were other industries that would have provided that for me. But this is just where my choices took me. And then at some point, I just wanted to be good. So I kept investing in being better and better because specialization does become important after a while. So if you're asking because you have no idea what you want to do, then that's very normal. Do one or two things that you enjoy doing. And if you truly hate it after a certain amount of time, you can move one or two and then just decide to be somewhere and grow in that field. That's how I thought about it.
It's a great point. You really sometimes don't know, and everybody thinks you're supposed to know exactly what you want to do. But today, more than ever, it's kind of, as one of our advisors said, it's a little bit of a zigzag sometimes to get to where you are. It's not always as straight as girls. Let's go to Sophia Pronina. Sophia, take it away.
Hi. So how do you suggest dealing with being labeled as too assertive or too bossy or too difficult as a woman in the industry?
Well, just say thank you and move on. I mean, the way you're asking the question makes me feel that these are bad characteristics. There's nothing wrong in being assertive and confident and...
Or I mean like aggressive. Yes, assertive has a positive connotation to it, but...
Yeah, you know, that's a very subtle question you're asking because a lot of people haven't figured out what style in a woman is the right level of assertiveness. They grow up with teachers and mothers as their role models that are very gentle in style. So when they see somebody even mildly assertive, especially in a woman, it often comes across as very aggressive. I'll tell you what my philosophy is. You be whatever you are and let society get used to your style.
Let's go to, boy, I love all these questions. Kristen, good question you have.
How do you balance work and children?
Oh, it's a very, you know, every day is a new answer, I would say. So I have two boys, they are 15 and 17 now. And I do balance my, you know, whenever I'm on panels, I'm known as somebody who does balance my work and life. I'm also married to a very accomplished man. He's got a career of his own. And there are times when my career has taken a second step because he's got something going on. There was a time when he was building a software company and there was a level of intensity around his career and I was having young children. And so I moved away from McKinsey and into a career that allowed me not to travel and be home because he was traveling a lot. So I would say work-life balance is a marathon, not one. There are days when you say sorry to your children because you missed something because you had a board meeting. And there are times when you tell a board member, it's my child's birthday or he's sick and I just need to make a different choice. And as long as you're honest and balanced to yourself, we do accept that more than ever now. You'll find more and more people like me who have a lot of empathy for young mothers, young fathers, and places where you just need, we have a lot of military reserve people who sometimes get called on to duty, and that's part of work-life balance for them. So I would say don't give up on your dreams, but don't try to do everything perfectly every day, because you just exhaust yourself to a point where you give up on either work or life. So this is what I would say: invest in yourself, make good choices. Don't worry if you are not perfect on any one day, because nobody really is.
Boy, these are such awesome questions. Any other burning questions, or Gunjan, any final words that you want to share?
No questions?
I guess I have a question too. How do you form relationships with your colleagues that typically are more easily formed by your male counterparts? Like you mentioned the penguin story. You know, it's typical for guys to be able to, you know, go out for drinks after work or go watch a sports game, but perhaps your interests don't lie in those fields. So how do you compensate for that and develop those bonds with your colleagues?
Well, I will tell you, that's a very, very important question. And one of the things I was talking to Jennifer about, we were comparing notes, is it's dangerous to very early in your life surround yourself with people who only share your own interests, because at the age of 16 or 17, you'll stop being interested in new things. So some part of it is you should try to be interested in things you are not exposed to, because you find many, many things that you're very interested in. So I was not interested in sports because I didn't understand them. But my kids are both like into football, and they have educated, that becomes a family thing we do. So one I would say is you should try to be sort of broader in your interests and try to be interested in things, even if you don't personally play something. Then teach people to be interested in what you're interested in. That's the give and take that creates a relationship. And I will tell you something. I can't tell you how many men friends I have. And I've taught them how to recognize Prada bags from Gucci bags so that they give good gifts to their wives and they love me. I have many, many male friends, and I've introduced them into the topic of everyday phrases that are offensive to women, and they love me for it. So my view is give and take is be interested in some things that you're not today, and make sure you introduce your male colleagues to things that they may not know about. And therein lies lifelong friendships.
Lifelong friendships and partnerships to getting to the top and making your dreams happen, girls, and reaching your potentials. It's really being all in it together. And Gunjan, what an incredible conversation with our young ladies. And girls, I just wanted to share with you a couple things that are coming up. We have our Fall Entrepreneurship Academy starting September 14th and October 12th, either once a week or twice a week, live with our classes, with our coaches, and huge impact on our young ladies' confidence and tech skills and leadership, public speaking, money, all the things that we've talked about today. Gunjan, it was just so awesome to hear from you. I think, look at everybody stayed on. We're so grateful that US Bank has partnered with Girls with Impact. And thank you, and have a fantastic rest of your week, and spread the word about Girls with Impact and US Bank. Have a great day, everybody.
I have a question before we hang up.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, but I could not let this phone call end before I ask. Hi, my name is Jada, and I can only imagine throughout your career and how many people you've interviewed. Have you ever come across somebody who maybe didn't meet all the qualifications? Maybe they didn't have their highest GPA or went to the best college, or maybe they didn't even have a long job history, but there was just something about them that you knew that they possessed, and you know they would be great for the team. And if that was the case, what did they possess? What qualities did they have? What did they say to you? What was it about them that you felt like they would make a good member?
Jida, thank you for your question. In fact, I'm always looking for that, because I'll tell you, people who come perfectly packaged sometimes lack stamina and character. And there is something about people who have done less in totality, but a lot more with where they started from. So we are always, and I hope you have confidence in that, we're always looking for people who have done a lot with what they have, not people who are perfectly packaged only. So your passion, your grit, your stamina, your personal conviction your personal confidence will carry the day more than any sort of resume worthy things only. So thank you, Jennifer. These are wonderful questions. You have a great group of audience who's thinking so right about things. And I know they will be wonderfully successful women in the times to come.
Thank you, everybody. We need to wrap up. Thank you, Gunjan, and have a great rest of your day.
Cheers.
Thank you.